explosion that happened at a restaurant here in the Russian capital on Saturday evening an act of terrorism. Now, so far, the Russian authorities, of course, are still in the early stages of investigating exactly what happened there. But what we've gleaned so far, Moscow's mayor is calling an explosion that happened at a restaurant here in the Russian capital on Saturday evening an act of terrorism. Now, so far, the Russian authorities, of course, are still in the early stages of investigating exactly what happened there. But what we've gleaned so far, Moscow's mayor is calling an explosion that happened at a restaurant here in the Russian capital on Saturday evening an act of terrorism. Now, so far, the Russian authorities, of course, are still in the early stages of investigating. Moscow's mayor is calling an explosion that happened at a restaurant here in the Russian capital on Saturday evening an act of terrorism. Now, so far, the Russian authorities, of course, are still in the early stages of investigating exactly what happened there. But what we've gleaned so far, Moscow's mayor is calling an explosion that happened at a restaurant.
It should take some time. I love Thompson niggas.
A big update in that Russian explosion that happened inside of Moscow in an upscale Italian restaurant where there were elite military commanders. This information is being brought out by the Russian state media, so take everything I'm saying to you with a grain of salt. In their latest reporting, they're stating that an unidentified woman had showed up outside the restaurant to bring in some kind of package. According to them, inside said package was an explosive device. It was at 8 p.m. where she tried to enter right here where that security guard stopped her, and then eventually that explosive device did go off. And in the photo, if you zoom in, you can see some of the damage from the explosive device going off. The three people who did die, one was the security guard, one was this unidentified woman, and then another one was a party goer who was injured, eventually died at the hospital. Injury list now sits at 21, and we still have no update about the commander of the Russian Aerospace Forces. And we're getting a lot more photos and videos from the scene. Some of it I cannot post here on TikTok, so if you want to go ahead and check out that stuff, go ahead and click the links in my bio to my Substack. We just got a big update in that Russian explosion that happened inside of Moscow in an upscale Italian restaurant where there were elite military commanders. This information is being brought out by the Russian state media, so take everything I'm saying to you with a grain of salt. In their latest reporting, they're stating that an unidentified woman had showed up outside the restaurant to bring in some kind of package. According to them,
the explosion happened around 8 o'clock in the evening, Saturday evening. For the next 3 hours or so, there was lots of rumours and speculation about the cause of the blast, but no official information. And then, eventually, Russia's National Anti-Terrorist Committee, quoted by Russian news agencies, came out and said that a woman had tried to bring an improvised explosive device into this Italian restaurant in Moscow, had been stopped by a security guard. That's where the blast happened. The woman and the guard were killed, and also a guest. So at least 3 people killed in this attack. The area around the restaurant was cordoned off, and a heavily armed police presence appeared very quickly. Investigators were on the scene to try to piece together exactly what had happened. One other piece of information, which is quite important, I think, and we got that from the website of the restaurant itself. The restaurant had been closed to the general public on Saturday evening for a private function. What we don't know yet is what that function was, what that private function was. In other words, who the target of this attack was. The explosion happened around 8 o'clock in the evening, Saturday evening. For the next 3 hours or so, there was lots of rumours and speculation about the cause of the blast, but no official information. And then eventually, Russia's National Anti-Terrorist Committee, quoted by Russian.
In 21 injured after an explosion at a restaurant in Russia. An improvised explosive device was detonated by a woman in Moscow. The attack is still being investigated. At least 3 people have died and 21 injured after an explosion at a restaurant in Russia. An improvised explosive device was detonated by a woman in Moscow. The attack is still being investigated. At least 3 people have died and 21 injured after an explosion at a restaurant in Russia. An improvised...
Injured 9 people, including 4 teenagers.
This includes one 15-year-old and 3 17-year-olds.
Greensboro police say that it happened around 1:50 in the morning on Sunday on the 3800 block of Westgate City Boulevard at the Royal Banquet Hall. So far, everybody is expected to be okay, but 2 people have been taken into custody. If you have any information on the shooting, contact Greensboro police. A mass shooting in Greensboro injured 9 people, including 4 teenagers.
This includes one 15-year-old and 3 17-year-olds.
Greensboro police say that it happened around 1.
And that party last night is exactly why Greensboro do not need 200,000 people coming down here for G-Ho. We cannot behave. Apparently 12 people got shot last night, y'all, at the function. And if you're coming down here for G-Ho, I want you to know it's a 50% chance of somewhere you going around here getting shot up. A function, a party, just an open field event, food trucks, y'all. 4th of July, they don't play. I'm trying to warn y'all. This is not a game. You need to be aware, y'all. I attended the function. It said 1,000-something people was supposed to be there. I ended up leaving and coming back in through the back door, so I know it wasn't fully secure. Now, they did have security front and back door. Getting a gun into these public events is not hard at all. They be security to a limit. G-Ho probably gonna have the snipers again though. And the thing is, these people don't got no aim. They be trying to shoot their ops and shoot everybody but the ops. And that party last night is exactly why Greensboro do not need 200,000 people coming down here for G-Ho. We cannot behave. Apparently 12 people got shot last night, y'all, at the function. And if you're coming down here for G-Ho, I want you to know it's a 50% chance of somewhere.
Y'all shot a young girl in the face last night on Clinton and fucking Laurel. Y'all are violating that girl, sending that video around, first of all. Then on top of that, if this is the girl, y'all are dead ass disrespectful. Her family's not in town, nothing. No respect. Bystanders are saying that police let off mace balls before the shots, which means that the police incited that shit. Arguably, I think people can say that police throwing the mace balls first could have been a terribly failed attempt at dispersing the crowd, but in the same breath, there are steps and procedures to following a protocol, okay, when it's introduced, and I feel like something like a curfew has step-by-step procedure. The first one was not to throw a fucking mace ball. Excusable? Hell no. But RPD, y'all just instigated a murder. But the person, people, or group that let off those shots, I don't know how you fucking slept last night. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how many wake-up calls y'all need to stop gathering on Clinton after certain times. Then on top of that, I'm not saying don't have your friends and whatever. It's a group of them on Facebook that are actively talking about how they never wanted your black ass in their community anyway. So are you gonna keep looking surprised when they keep killing your people, or you're gonna stop going? She was really supposed to debut on Clinton last night. There definitely needs to be better implementation practices, I'm not gonna lie. People already saw that curfew as a joke. Now we think it's the joke of the year. Lastly, I send my deepest condolences to her family. Don't know the girl. I pray that she's identified in a way that's morally respected, and I pray she gets justice. Y'all shot a young girl in the face last night on Clinton and fucking Laurel. Y'all are violating that girl, sending that video around, first of all. Then on top of that, if this is the girl, y'all are dead ass disrespectful. Her family's not in town, nothing. No respect. Bystanders are saying that police let off mace balls before the shots, which means that the police incited that shit. Arguably, I think
outside here on Morrell Street off of North Dillon Avenue. This is after hundreds of people gathered on North Dillon Avenue and police officers tried to shut down the area. Pepper spray was also deployed and there were hundreds of people. We had a GSO News camera in the crowds. There were hundreds of people hanging out the windows, listening to music and more. I also spoke to one witness who was here when the shots were fired, and she says it was a good time and people were listening to music, and then multiple shots were fired. She started running for her life when she seen the young lady who was shot and killed. She was pronounced dead here at the scene, and we're waiting for more details as this continues. Not only that, but there was also another
North of Upper Falls, from Gainesway up. So as part of that, we had to get agency of officers in place. We have their shift in place. So about 10:30 we started to disperse that group.
If you still didn't believe that the trenches in upstate New York is worse than the ones in the city, check this out. Somebody got their hand completely chopped off in an altercation in Rochester today. Now we already know, Rochester is far from paradise, you feel me? But yo, getting your hand completely chopped off in a fight is not crazy to you? Yo, that's low-key on some cartel style type vibes, yo. Chopped his hand completely off. What did you do to make that man that mad? You feel me? Now, thankfully, that man survived and made it to the hospital, but he's gonna be using his left hand for the rest of his life, which is crazy. And it didn't just end there, you feel me? This was a whole war going on, because in a nearby apartment, they found evidence of shots fired on the wall from an AR-style rifle, and then they found this big 12-inch fixed black knife, which was probably used to cut the man's hand off. I'm not gonna lie, something like this just makes Rochester look worse. Every time I hear something about Rochester, it's crazy, it's never good. That's probably one city I'll never step foot in, not gonna lie. Yo, if you still didn't believe that the trenches in upstate New York is worse than the ones in the city, check this out. Somebody got their hand completely chopped off in an altercation in Rochester today. Now we already know, Rochester is far from paradise, you feel me? But yo, getting your hand completely chopped off in a fight is not crazy to you? Yo, that's low-key on some cartel style type vibes, yo. Chopped his hand completely off. What did you do to make that man that mad?
Suspects have been arrested yet in connection to his shooting death. This is 60-year-old Tim Bankston, and he was a beloved Chicago high school basketball coach and former star basketball player. He was found shot dead inside a South Side home this past week. According to reports, Tim was found deceased by a friend on Wednesday, July 29th at around 10 a.m. This was inside a home in Chicago's Auburn Gresham neighborhood. Police have since confirmed he died from a single gunshot wound to his abdomen, and he was unfortunately pronounced deceased at the scene of this home. The Chicago Police Department is now reportedly investigating his shooting, but so far, no arrests have been made, and that sucks. The investigation is still very active and ongoing, though. Now, reportedly at the time, Tim was actually living in Gary, Indiana, but he was back in Chicago visiting a friend's home when he was shot and killed. I believe he formerly was from Chicago. When his friend got back home, that's when he found Tim shot and dead on the floor. Tim has since been greatly celebrated in the basketball community of Chicago. He reportedly served as a starting point guard back in the 1980s, and that was at Simeon High School. After he graduated high school, Tim reportedly played college basketball at Bradley University and Loyola University, Chicago. He then dedicated decades of his life coaching youth in basketball and mentoring them. Reportedly, he left behind his wife, 2 daughters, and a son. His family members are now very frustrated and heartbroken about the circumstances surrounding his death. His sister has since said for someone to have just cowardly shot him like they did and then just leave him there on the floor to die, that's unreal. He was described as being an amazing man with a beautiful spirit on top of being an absolute basketball legend. This is so tragic, and it's even worse that justice is not being served yet because no arrests have been made. That's scary too. My prayers go out to all who knew and loved him, and I also pray that they find out who was responsible for this senseless violence so that justice can be properly and swiftly served. For more true crime, be sure to follow and subscribe over on YouTube. A high school basketball coach was shot dead, and
First, let me say how unfortunate it is that the city of Rochester has lost someone who signed up to protect its people. Last night, a police officer in Rochester, New York, was shot and killed. His name was Anthony Mazurkiewicz. His partner was also shot, but did not receive life-threatening injuries. A 15-year-old girl was also shot. I happen to have notifications on my phone when certain events happen in cities. I received a notification of a police shooting at 6:30 p.m. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and this happened then at 9:30 p.m. on the East Coast. I was speaking to a friend at the time over text, and as I got the notification and began listening, I started live texting him what I was hearing over the scanner. The New York Post report was the first to pop up on my news feed on Facebook. It's usually pretty accurate with giving me the most recent news. And then about half an hour ago, I checked again to see if anybody had reported on it. There are now multiple reports, but they are not the same original story.
On Meriden Street in Cornelius, where police are still investigating a shooting that happened here earlier today. A quiet Cornelius neighborhood turned into an active crime scene Saturday after a shooting left one person fighting for their life. Police responded to a home on Meriden Street around 2:05 Saturday afternoon after getting a 911 call about a possible shooting. When officers arrived, they found one person with life-threatening injuries. That victim was rushed to the local hospital. Investigators say this was not a random act of violence. They believe the shooting was targeted and say the suspect and victim knew each other, although it's still unclear exactly how they were connected. Police blocked off the street for hours while detectives collected evidence and interviewed neighbors. Neighbors we spoke with say that they are aware of this incident that happened here earlier today, but they still feel safe being in this area. Police officers say that this is a very rare incident to happen here in Cornelius, and police officers will continue to remain here on the scene until later this evening, and anyone with additional information is asked to contact the police. We're here on Meriden Street in Cornelius, where police are still investigating a shooting that happened here earlier today. A quiet Cornelius neighborhood turned into an active crime scene Saturday after a shooting left one person fighting for their life. Police responded to a home on Meriden Street around 2:05 Saturday afternoon after getting a 911 call about a possible shooting. When officers arrived, they found one person with life-threatening injuries. That victim was rushed to the local hospital. Investigators say this was not a random act of violence. They believe the shooting was targeted and say the suspect and victim knew each other, although it's still unclear exactly how they were connected. Police blocked off the street for hours while detectives collected evidence and interviewed neighbors. Neighbors we spoke with say that they are aware of this incident that happened here earlier today, but they still feel safe being in this area. Police officers say that this is a very rare incident to happen here in Cornelius, and police officers will continue to remain here on the scene until later this evening, and anyone with additional information is asked.
We get answers about the death of Nolan Wells. And whether you're a detractor, a white supremacist, or someone who just hates black people and you're adding to the noise about this case, I'd implore you to think about Nolan Wells' family. Think about a mother who tragically lost her child under the strangest circumstances and how you'd feel if you had no answers and no one who knows what actually happened working with you to get these answers. We have to just admit nothing about this case makes any sense. The description has and continues to be that Nolan Wells went out with his white friends on the 4th to Horn Island and he never returned. But we have to stop calling these guys his friends, because if they were Nolan's friends, they would have been at the police station, would have been at the funeral, they would be calling his mother non-stop to get to the bottom of what happened. That's what they did instead. They kept Nolan's phone and deleted evidence, pictures, and social media posts. They had Nolan's keys and acted like they didn't. They all privated or deleted their social media. One of the boys' moms, a judge, released a preliminary statement as if she was the mother who lost their child.
I'm trying to go follow J Meg, and she's been on this Nolan Wells.
Woman is facing multiple federal charges for allegedly making threatening phone calls to Mississippi government agencies amid the investigation into Nolan Wells' death. So this is Michelle Edwards, and she is from Ohio. And according to authorities, on July 23rd, she made multiple threatening phone calls. We're talking 29 of them referencing bombs. Now, authorities said that a blocked caller ID was used. However, they were able to trace that number back to a Cash App account that was linked to Michelle. Now, one of the agencies that received these threatening phone calls was the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. We all know that they are the lead investigators into the death of Nolan. Now, Michelle is not the first person to be arrested amid the investigation into Nolan's death. We do know that a man was also charged for making threats against Ashley Cole, and Ashley is a Jackson County judge, and she is also the mom of one of the boys that was last seen with Nolan on the day he disappeared. Now, Nolan's parents have also been speaking out. They said that they too have been receiving death threats online, and all of this is while they are trying to find answers about what happened to their son. If convicted, Michelle could face up to 5 years in federal prison. She could face a $250,000 fine, and she will be on supervised probation for 3 years. The woman is facing multiple federal charges for allegedly making threatening phone calls to Mississippi government agencies amid the
So they done arrested 3 people now in the Nolan Wells case. But now one of these people was at Horn Island. The people that have been arrested were people that were sending threats online to the judge. So her life is so important. And no, I do not condone bullying and harassing. I think that shit is stupid and weird. However, I find it very strange that y'all can go and get somebody in a whole nother state across the country, but y'all can't get the person that did this to Nolan and they literally 2 miles away from wherever the hell the police district is. Like, you make that make sense. It's like, I feel tremendously bad for Nolan's parents, because every arrest they make that has nothing to do with the unaliving or the mysterious unaliving of their son, it's like a slap in the face. And let's mention, wasn't his mom, wasn't Miss Christine threatened as well? Where are the people that arrested her? Y'all are further proving the point that it's racially motivated. Because this white woman life is important. Miss Christine don't have other children that she have to care for and protect. Miss Christine doesn't have a husband and a family that she has to protect. Where are the people being arrested for stalking and harassing and bullying this woman? Where are the people that are putting fake reviews on her job's website, so much so they had to delete that whole portion of the website because it was getting too many what? It's like we in a twilight zone, and the people that don't see nothing wrong with it are just as sick. So they done arrested 3 people now in the Nolan Wells case.
was trained by the United States government to.
Investigation got a lot of people who make comments talking real reckless, and this is the thing piece on how I feel about how y'all are showing up on the internet, because y'all, this really needs to be studied. I have so many people that are in my comments like, oh, okay, so what if they do the forensics on their cell phones and all of the digital and it doesn't prove anything? Oh, okay, what if they are telling the truth? Oh, okay, what if it's all a lie? You're lying, you're making up lies, you're spreading lies, you're an idiot, you're stupid. Okay, so this is like the $1 million question that I have for you. If that was your child, and unfortunately your child initially went missing and then your child passed away and was found near a body of water, you literally have no idea what happened to your child. I'll take it further. What if it was your mama? What if it was your sister, your cousin? What if it was your dog? Because some of y'all care more about the dogs and cats than y'all do human beings. What if it was any of those people? Then you would actually have a complete change in tone. You wouldn't be approaching me the way you are, and you'd actually be mad with me if I said, well, your dog went missing and now he gone. So what? Now, if I said that about your dog, you'd be acting crazy. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Nola's mama is getting a lot of flack for a lot of different reasons that don't make sense to me. Y'all want this lady to crash out on the internet. Y'all want this lady to crash out on different press releases. Y'all want her to literally lose it every time she gets on the internet. When a black woman chooses to show up as her best version of herself, even in her toughest time, I need y'all to understand that we literally are built with survival of the fittest. We have been living in survival for much of our lives. Being a black woman in America requires us to show up as our strongest self 100% of the time. We don't have the option to be weak. We don't have the option to fall apart. We don't have the option to lose it in front of everybody, because then you'll criticize us for that too. Now, what black women know and understand is that y'all gonna criticize everything we do regardless. There will be something negative said about anything that we do. But to criticize this lady for wanting to find out what happened to her child, for wanting to truly get the story, it's not necessarily about being clear about, oh, who did it. It's sometimes about understanding what happened. There is a possibility that these kids never did any of those things, and something unfortunate happened. Maybe they did get in a fight. Maybe there was some substance abuse. It's a variety of things that could happen. However, even if they're not at fault for what actually happened, they're at fault for not handling it appropriately after it happened. So, okay, there are two sides to this. They did it and they're covering it up. The other thing is they didn't do something unfortunate happened. And once that thing happened, they did not alert the authorities. They did not get adults involved. They were completely honest because of whatever things they were doing that were illegal, that were inappropriate, they should not have been happening. Okay? So now we don't have a clear story. I want the story. So many millions of people in America want the story. That's what we want. And that's why we're getting on here every day, making sure that this story don't die. Because here's what y'all did do. Ben Crump down here said, the autopsy results are complete, but he hasn't necessarily seen the results, and they could decide that they wanted to go straight to the district attorney and the grand jury inquest and not give it to Ben Crump. Now, I'm going to tell you why they probably would choose that, because they know that if they give it to Ben Crump, they probably can't tell him that he can't share it with the public, and they don't want to share it with the public, because then we can continue to extend the conspiracy theories. We can continue to speculate, and so many different stories will become reality after a while. This lady is fighting for justice for her son, and y'all act like this. And then y'all evidently think that African Americans are the most ignorant people on the planet. The way that y'all get in my comments talking reckless, I want to give a special shout out to all the old heads in my comments that getting all these other people together. And I understand that some of the people that are cutting up are not just black people. But so what I'm going to say is, are not just white people cutting up in my comments. It is some black people cutting up in my comments too and calling me dumb and stupid and ignorant, whatever else. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but you're not going to insult me a day in your life, because I continue to guarantee you all that I probably have much more education than half of the people that are calling me idiots in the comments, just so we're crystal clear. You have no idea whose post you talking under. I just don't take the time to go back and forth with y'all. But I feel compelled to eat y'all up a little bit today, because I feel like y'all attacking that boy mama every time y'all get in my comments and say something. Because everything I'm doing is to bring attention to everything that's out there that could be true.
And here's the truth of all of this. Nobody knows the truth except for the people who are doing the investigation. What's happening right now is people are speculating. People are digging into the details that we do have access to and highlighting inconsistencies. People are literally magnifying everything that we hear so that it can get the appropriate attention to be investigated. That's what this is about. The investigation will clear up whether they're lies, truths, or anything else. Y'all don't know because y'all wouldn't be. So unless you were at Horn Island and unless you were in every particular interaction that happened the day that led up to Nola Wells going missing and his unaliving, stay out my comments with all your reckless foolishness, guys. Whatever things they were doing that were illegal, that were inappropriate, that should not have been.
Brittany Griner is a man. First wife, she left after having them twins, took her to court and said, these ain't mine, and walked away. Now, she's leaving her second wife, the same wife that helped her get out of that Russian prison, working with Biden, to be able to come back to Arizona, and now she's like, I'm done, I'm out, I want a divorce. Man behavior, ungrateful. Brittany Griner is a man. First wife, she left after having them twins, took her to court and said, these ain't mine, and walked away. Now, she's leaving her second wife, the same wife that helped her get out of that Russian prison, working with Biden, to be able to come back to Arizona, and now she's like, I'm done, I'm out, I want a divorce. Man behavior, ungrateful.
After Brittany Griner filed for divorce, 5 celebrities publicly called her out. Number 5, Lori Johnson, Brittany's first wife. Lori said she's seen this pattern before. Sherelle endured their darkest days together. Everyone thought they'd finally get their happy ending, only to get blindsided by the divorce papers. She feels terrible for Sherelle. Number 4, Brianna Stewart. As someone in a same-sex relationship, Brianna admitted she's deeply disappointed. She fought hard alongside Sherelle and rallied support for Brittany back then. Now that life settled down, the divorce came out of nowhere. She says a bond forged through hardship shouldn't fall apart this easily. Number 3, Courtney Williams. Courtney was totally shocked. She thought surviving such a massive crisis would strengthen their marriage. Instead, once the chaos calmed and their baby arrived, Sherelle got served divorce paperwork. It even made her rethink her own future marriage with her partner Natisha. Number 2, Chelsea Gray. Chelsea shares a child with her spouse, and she's got mixed feelings. She knows exactly how much Sherelle sacrificed to bring Brittany home. To see their marriage crumble so fast once life went back to normal, it breaks her heart. She never thought love built through struggle could be this fragile. Number 1, Alyssa Thomas. Alyssa can't wrap her head around Brittany's choice. This whole situation made her question what same-sex marriage can look like. She's engaged to DeWanna Bonner, and she's terrified her own relationship could end up the same way. Less than
Okay, so breaking news, at least 3 are dead and 21 injured after an improvised bomb exploded in an upscale Moscow restaurant. A woman tried to enter the Balzi Razi restaurant, and I'm not going to pronounce where that happened, when a guard stopped her, and the bomb exploded, killing her, the guard, and a customer at the restaurant. The motive or the identity of the woman is currently unknown. That is news. My name is Forgiato. I'm going to try to find a palatable video for you to watch. Because I'll be honest with you, the videos I saw, is limbs to them. I'm looking. That's not so bad, right, guys? So, but that's bad. The situation's pretty bad. But that is news. Like I said, my name is Forgiato. Give me a follow and stay tuned. The question is, who did this and why did they do that, right? I don't think it was Ukraine. I don't think Ukraine really has the vested interest of hiring some random woman to strap a bomb to her chest and go into a restaurant and blow it up. But I am curious as to who would do such a thing. But that is news. Once I do figure out some information, I'll keep you posted. My name is Forgiato. Give me a follow and stay tuned.
A plea agreement has been reached in the Courtney Clenny case. The OnlyFans model who unalived her boyfriend, Christian Toby Upsala, Let's talk about it. Now, my OG followers already know. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes. If you're not following the Black Death Society, please make sure to do so. This is a space in which pop culture money and real life meet. Now, if you remember, in April of 2022, Courtney was charged with second-degree murder for unaliving her boyfriend, Christian Toby Upsala. All along, Courtney has been claiming that she acted in self-defense because, according to her, Christian Toby Upsala was abusive to her. I've been tracking this case over the years, and many of Courtney's friends have come out in actual defense of Christian, saying that it was actually Courtney that was the abuser. Now, let me be honest, this case was a mess from the beginning. It was very sensationalized for a lot of different reasons, and I know that Christian, aka Toby, the family wanted people to come out and really advocate on his behalf. However, as the internet often does, you know that your digital footprint is what? Forever. Because now people are taking the approach to say, before we get out on the front lines and advocate for you, we want to know what you were about. And when people got to digging into Toby's background here, they found that he made some very, very problematic, misogynistic comments and remarks about Black women, and you already know what was the result of that. Not only was Toby's remarks misogynistic, they were colorist, and honestly, they were downright disgusting. And his family did come out in defense of Toby, saying that many of the remarks that he made online about Black women were done when he was a teenager, and they went as far as to apologize on his behalf, and still hoping that the public and the community would come out in defense of him, because they truly believe that an injustice was being done against Toby, and basically a character assassination was happening. They wanted to make sure that justice was served in this case. Well, we're going to have to wait to see if justice is truly served in this case, and on August 10th, 2026, a hearing will take place to determine how much time Courtney will actually serve. In the state of Florida, the minimum amount of time to be given for a second-degree murder is 16.75 years. So that's the minimum amount of time, according to state law in Florida, you could be given. As we know, with good...